Pratistayam means to be firmly established in, or firmly rooted or grounded or practiced in. Ahimsa, which is the first of the yamas. So what does it mean to be firmly established in ahimsa? Part of it is, I think, that it means that whatever circumstances arise, we're able to navigate with an orientation towards non-harming. Even when conflict, confusion, misunderstanding, injustice comes our way, are we able to hold the value of ahimsa as we wind our way through those murkier parts of life? I'll read a quote from Krishnamurti, who's a very interesting figure, born into a very holy family, but then kind of rejects a little bit the all systems, kind of rejects all systems. So he's a little bit of an interesting thinker, kind of a rebel. Here's his quote. When you call yourself an Indian or a Muslim or a Christian or a European or anything else, you are being violent. Do you see why it is violent? Because you are separating yourself from the rest of mankind. When you separate yourself by belief, by nationality, by tradition, it breeds violence. So a man who is seeking to understand violence does not belong to any country, any religion, any political party. He is concerned instead with total understanding of mankind. So be careful when you listen to quotes like these. Like, sometimes it's sort of tempting to take it at face value and think that he's making some statement about identities not being real or valid or important or something like that. Instead, look for the little bit more nuanced reading, which I think is what he really means, right? He's certainly not saying identities are invalid. They are certainly real. And when we are learning about other people's experiences and histories and identities in order to better connect to them and to better connect to our understanding and to our humanity, then all good, right? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as we have in the English the saying. Don't throw out the whole thing at once, right? So a more nuanced understanding, though, here is to understand that when we identify too closely with any of these identities in a way in which it creates more divisions, more separation, in ways that we create more of a distance between us and them, that's where the potential for harm and the potential for violence arises. And once we create those separations, that's when thoughts, words, and actions can become harmful. So, one very disturbing thing that I've seen on the internet lately is, we are having these very devastating set of storms coming through the southern part of our country. And I've seen several comments on the internet saying, like, those people deserve it because their political party doesn't believe in climate change. And I think when we catch ourselves having thoughts like that, it's worth examining them. Because of course, first of all, there are millions of people being affected, many of which may or may not believe whatever they believe, but does that mean that those people deserve to suffer, right? And so we need to examine exactly what we mean by ahimsa, and maybe even what we mean by, like, what is a human right. If I assert that something is a human right, maybe the right to access clean water, food, shelter, that if I consider that a human right, then I consider it for everyone, even if I disagree with them, right? Or even if they've done me harm, you see. It becomes very difficult very quickly. No one said this ahimsa stuff was going to be easy. And that's another place where we sometimes can get caught, is the times in which we see another person who's doing harm, maybe to myself, maybe others, and then we also wish harm to come upon them. And that comes from a very real and very human, sort of wish to see an orderly and just and fair universe, right? Which, even if the universe is orderly and just and fair, it might not be playing out on my timeline or from my particular perspective on things, right? my like one set of eyes, and my very short timeline might not be able to appreciate the ways in which all of this plays out eventually. And it's none of my business, right? It's none of my business that that other person suffers. I wanted to read another quote. This one is actually from a governor here in the United States, the governor of Illinois. We ought to have more leaders that are driven by compassion for others, in my opinion. And I think he's one. So here's what he has to say. I have found one thing to be universally true. The kindest person in the room is often the smartest. The best way to spot an idiot is to look for the person who is cruel. Let me explain. When we see someone who doesn't look like us, or sound like us, or act like us, or love like us, or live like us, the first thought to cross almost everyone's brain is rooted in either fear or judgment or both. That's evolution. We survived by being suspicious of things that we aren't familiar with. In order to be kind, we have to shut down that animal instinct and force our brain to travel a different pathway. Empathy and compassion are evolved states of being. They require the mental capacity to step past our most primal urges. This may be a surprising assessment because somewhere along the way, in the last few centuries, in the last few decades, in the last few years, anyway, in the last few years, our society has come to believe that weaponized cruelty is part of some well thought out master plan. Cruelty is seen by some as a way to gain power. Empathy and kindness are considered weak. Many important people look at the vulnerable only as rungs on the ladder to the top. I'm here to tell you that when someone's path through the world is marked with acts of cruelty, they have failed the first test of an advanced society. They never forced their most basic instincts to evolve past the first layer. They never forged new mental pathways to overcome their own instinctual fears and survival instincts. And so their thinking and problem solving will lack the imagination and creativity that the kindest people have. Pratistayam, to be grounded in, established in, practiced in, steadfast in.